So, hey everyone, it's Make a Move Micro Realty Executives Dylan. I'm here with Andy Cruz of Mortgage Heroes, and today we're going to be discussing the housing price forecast. When exactly will prices be going down? Well, no one has a crystal ball, so we really don't know the answer to that. But today we're going to talk about it a little bit. But before we do that, I just want to make sure that all of our videos are here for informational purposes only. We're just looking to inform everyone to make them aware in what's going on in the world, real estate world and lending world. So we're never pushy and trying to force anyone to buy or sell. That's not our MO. So I wanted to put that out there first.
That's a good point.
But again, when will prices go down? So basically in 2020, we had a very low supply of homes now, and buyer demand was extremely high, as it is still now, and rates are low. They're still low. And we had multiple, factors creating inflation in prices for materials and goods.
And some of it was behavioral too. Like people just, I don't want to open my house. I don't know what's going on with this whole people getting sick or whatever. Like, so there was part of that. And plus it was, hey, if you go to an office place, go work at home. And it was like, 2 weeks and it became longer, right? So I'm not gonna get into that. But the whole point was everyone needs to be at home. So it's like, okay, well, I'm not gonna sell my house when I'm supposed to be at home and this is where I work now. So some of that was just the dynamics of what was going on. But then that became matched with all these other economic things.
Yes, and to your point, it may have created or interrupted our lives. What did interrupt our lives? There's no mistaking that. But however, as I look back on it, it made a lot of our lives improve because people are not having to commute to work an hour, half an hour sitting in traffic, and they're able to stay at home. They don't have to get dressed.
Well, it forced a little bit of simplification in some levels, and I know things were obviously more complicated depending on your kid situation, whether you're in a sandwich generation taking care of kids, and also parents who are older than you. Like I know that I have a lot of friends of mine who are in situations that became much more difficult, because of especially the child care factor, and friends who everyone else is supposed to be at home, but they are the one who works in the healthcare field and had to go out or whatever. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff happening, but I think that when I look in hindsight and look at what happened and where house prices are, I look at the fact that there was low supply. The Federal Reserve had to step in and do something with try to support and prop up the economy by putting money into the mortgage bonds, buying mortgage-backed securities more specifically, and it made money really cheap. And when money became really cheap, people were like, oh wait a minute, I can refinance, I can cash out, I can do this, I can do that, and then people were starting to reevaluate their life. I'm going to reevaluate where I'm going to live, why I'm going to live there, and where I'm going to spend my money on housing. And that, I think, totally tilted where we see real estate, where it started, let's say 12 months ago, and where it is now. Just in a 12-month period, I had no idea it would look the way it would look right now.
I agreed. I don't think anyone did for the most part, but that those factors cause inflation and home values to increase. Everyone. So. But I want to, say that eventually things will begin to normalize. Now, when that happens, we don't know. I believe personally that supply and demand must change dramatically in order for most people to notice. We notice it gradually because we're in this market day in and day out. So we notice subtle changes and we can see the shift. Whereas your average consumer may not see it, but that's why we create.
Well, they're gonna hear and see what's most talked about, which is home prices breaking record highs again, interest rates at all-time low. They're gonna hear the headline kind of stuff. We get the deep dive stuff because we're reading industry articles all day long. We're working in the field every day, and so we see a lot more of that stuff. And I think you're right. I mean, people won't notice until the headline changes, which is home prices have slowed, rates are increasing, foreclosures are on the rise, eviction moratorium has ended. Like, okay, when that stuff happens, then people will take notice in mass, I should say.
I agree 100%. And what's, I wanted to mention that month to month we're seeing, 2, 3, 5% appreciation, depending on your neighborhood. Now it's going to vary again depending on your neighborhood, and that is nuts.
That's crazy.
But one thing I want to mention is that while people wait for things to normalize, that does. What does that mean when demand is high and supply is slowly increasing? that it's just one of those things where supply is basically being met with demand, because I'm seeing a subtle increase in the number of homes that are hitting the market, but demand is meeting them right.
There's already people waiting. Yes, so it's like the new donut shop comes to town, but there's already been a line of 100 people for a month. Exactly. The donut shop, like, oh, we're finally open. Like all the people, like, we've been here for a month waiting for donuts.
So I believe supply must outweigh demand, which will cause a slowdown. And now I don't think the slowdown is gonna cause prices to go down. I think there will be stabilization first with less offers for homes that are available for sale over asking, and I think you'll have less competition. So
and I think to accommodate that point, I think or to align with that point, I think there was kind of like this frenzy that's been happening, and like all frenzies, no matter what industry it is, no matter what time period, all frenzies eventually come to a slowdown, and people kind of go, wait, what's happening? Yes. Wait, why are we in this frenzy, right? Yeah. And so then we can look backwards in the rearview mirror, like we're doing right now, and talk about what caused it, why did we get where why did we get here, and how did it arrive? And I think one of the catalysts that's gonna change what we see in the local marketplace with supply and demand, with housing prices and all that, it is gonna be people resisting. Yes. I think eventually people are gonna start resisting the price, right? Because you can justify the argument of the price right now because the cost to borrow is so low. Yes. But when the cost to borrow changes, I'm gonna look twice at that house that you're trying to sell me for $850,000. Yes. That last year was $700. Yeah. Or $650, right? Yes. So I'm gonna think twice because I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I know that house was $650 last year. Why is it $850 right now? Right. Oh, okay, cheap money. Yes. There's a lot of demand, low supply, so there's forces working towards that, and that's causing that. But I think the resistance that people are gonna have on the buyer side is going to eventually show up. Yes. And right now it's not showing up because there's layers of buyers. You don't like the first offer, second or third offer? Well, there's 20 more behind it. Yes. So, hey, no big deal. But until those are the only 3 offers you get, that's when we're going to start seeing a change. Yeah. And I personally have been seeing a little bit of that, but I think it varies from neighborhood to neighborhood. Absolutely. So, yes. And then to your point, I did a short video, last week, and speaking about, if a home, if you buy a home now at $800K, put 20% down at 3% interest, your payment would be this dollar amount. And then buying that same home at $680, let's say home prices drop, you buy that same home at $680 at 4.5%. Your mortgage payment is going to be about $50 more. So that's one of the things I always tell people, be careful with fear. You just do the numbers because they make sense, and it Well, and check this: if you're renting that place, you're not in control of the cost. Yes. the person who owns it is going to change that on you. When you have the mortgage, it's fixed. Right. So there's that. I know it's another layer to what we're talking about, but it's like 800,000 at 3%. 680 at 4.5%, or renting. Like those are your choices.
Rent's going to go up almost on average every year. Oh yeah. So just take
especially right now. I mean, again, it is affected too with demand. I mean, just the other day I was overhearing a conversation where someone here was calling on behalf of one of their clients, asking, "Hey, this guy's selling his house, looking to just park it for about a year or two, and we'll pay you a year up front." And the other end of the call was this: I already got 50 applications, and I have someone paying 3 years ahead in advance. And I was like, "What? That is insane." Yeah, but it happened still. Yeah. So I can say it's insane because I wouldn't do it. But the fact that it's happening in the marketplace is a reflection of just how tight certain things are.
Housing shortage. So
yeah, it's crazy.
So we're not telling you to buy right now. Right. That's bottom line. What we're saying is, what I'm saying is, don't follow someone else's plan. You got to buy when it's right for you, but don't get caught up in all the FOMO, fear of missing out. Mm-hmm. It's okay to wait. I think it has to be the right decision for you and your family, and you and your family are the only ones that'll know when that time is. But we're just here to provide information to help you get off the fence. To help you to have thought-provoking conversation, to help you think things through. Yeah. thoroughly.
Everyone's got to make the right choice for them at the end. At the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter what the market's doing right now. If it doesn't serve you well, don't do it.
Right.
Like, that's kind of a simple approach. Yeah. But that's part of, like, you know, we've done other videos where we talk to people about, like, hey, have a meeting of the minds and talk through things and figure out what is it you're trying to accomplish and how we get there.
Yes.
And then be honest about it, right? And have right expectations and communicate clearly. And it's like, all that stuff matters even in this conversation now, because it's not the right time for some people to sell. No. I have friends that aren't selling right now simply because their kids are still going to the school they want to graduate from.
Yeah.
So the market's at the top. Andy, should I sell? I don't know. Is it the right time for you to sell? Some people say no. Okay. Yeah. Is it the right time for me to buy? If you're going to stay here for 30 years or 20, that's you're retiring here. Sure, you're going to have to buy at some point.
Yes.
So it's always changing relative to who you're talking to.
Yeah. Now, home prices have, again, depending on which neighborhood you're in, home prices have appreciated 10, 15, sometimes even 20% over the past year. Now, if you don't get in the game, you do risk missing the opportunity to get in the housing market if prices do pull back. So you got to do what makes sense for you and your family. Buy, as I mentioned earlier, buy because it's the right thing for you and your family to do. There are no guarantees that prices will decline here in the near future.
And you have people on both sides of that argument holding their ground.
Yes, and they make great points, mind you. But I suggest just continue to watch the market, but I believe it is highly unlikely to see a decline, with demand as high as it is right now. We're not really seeing a slowdown with demand, so we'll see.
Well, and I think one of the biggest things that's a comparison from what's happening now into what they called the last bubble and the crash, like 2008, 2009. Back then there were a lot of people, millions of people that were getting loans that they actually weren't qualified for.
Right.
And because of the financial reform that's changed and happened since then, the qualification standards have changed tremendously. And so the threat to there being many foreclosures used to have to do with your inability to repay, but your inability to repay was connected to you didn't have to prove that you could pay.
Right.
Right? In the past. Now your inability to repay is connected directly to your employment. Right. And so I think jobs and the employment factor is going to be a huge influencer on whether we see people come out of forbearance faster.
Yes.
And forbearances become loan modifications, which will cause home retention.
Right.
If they are failed modifications or the forbearance ends and the person cannot pay or adjust their loan, then they're going to end up in the pre-foreclosure process, which will then cause there to be more homes hit the market. But even then, they're going to be way more mechanical about how that happens as to avoid what happened before.
Right. And I think it leads to people selling and avoiding foreclosure because they have equity. They can avoid foreclosure.
Correct.
Sell their home, have cash once they sell that home, and then they'll have a nest egg to for future if they want to buy again when they're ready.
They can restart again in a couple of years or whenever, but they have equity. That's your point. Like before, they didn't have equity. Yeah. It was 100% financing all the time for everybody.
Yes.
Not just like the VA deal, right? But it was everybody. 80-20, 2 loans, 80% and a 20% loan. And just people were maxed out right from the get.
Yeah.
And this is a particularly interesting conversation because we're already starting to see some signs of certain things slowing depending on the neighborhood, and other things not slowing down at all. And then you have two sides of the coin arguing about it. We have, this is the biggest real estate bubble ever, and then people saying, stop calling it a bubble. It's not a bubble. The things that threatened our collapse last time are not even threatening our collapse this time. So I get both those things. I just don't know exactly what's going to happen. I wish I had a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen.
Neither do I. I do want to say that fear keeps people on the fence and keeps them from taking, prevents them from taking action. And then you notice 3, 4, 5 years down the line that you should have taken action, because that's generally when people buy, is when fear is preventing others from buying. So just another tip. But thanks everyone for joining us today for this video. We're happy to have you with us. If you have any questions regarding what we just discussed and you'd like to have a buyer consultation or a seller consultation, please reach out to Andy and I. We'd be happy to help you.